Is actually a lot.
So we're doing the recording now.
It's more like-
Live.
Should.
Otherwise, things are good for.
Yeah, it's good, but like, I don't get too busy and stuff. Start. Let's get started. Get to the harvest.
See, there it goes. One, two.
Better.
Early.
We don't know why.
The lights decided we were asleep, so they went
Plus
off.
or minus 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, all right.
I would say that conference. What's that conference?
Hey. Yeah, the other stuff was really in Tacoma to Marriott or something. It was, and they had the where the lights went off. It was the same thing. They had all these smart everything, and they could not.
I emailed it to you.
I mean, they had like the head of maintenance, and it kept happening to the point where, like, we got through the rest of the meeting for the day. It was like a 2 or 3 day thing, and the next day, I mean, they had the electrician in there. They were not, and they could not.
You know, two
It was
West
just
End
shut
mayors
off.
are
I mean,
going
it
to
would
join
be pitch black,
electronically. They had them.
and they eventually moved.
They got the
us
link and
to this
everything?
Other kind of lobby area. The next
Sent it to
day,
them
they
3
set up a
times.
whole new
Okay.
conference area for us, one of these like barriers, like cloth, because we were kind of in the lobby. And we were about an hour into the meeting and the lights went off and we were like, and they were like, no, somebody just actually turned the switch off by mistake. Switch? They had a switch, but they never could. They never did by the time they said, no, there's something's going on. Smart lighting system, and they could not get it to stay on. They were hacked and somebody was hacked.
Oh, there's so many
Yeah.
little things like that.
Let's watch what happens.
You have a project going on?
Who, me?
Yeah, I see a big, you have a big crane out there.
What'd you say?
You have a big crane out there this morning?
Oh, did you see that?
You know, you're like, "Oh, Ryan's got something going on."
Yeah, I was supposed to do it last night. It was like 6 a.m. I started at setting up volt for a pump.
Right,
Uh,
that's what I expected. Check my mail.
Yeah, has it over in the Houston area or like on this?
Like that, I can,
It was down, I was down by
It's
some
still-
steps.
no, I can still.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Like the
a, there's a
minute
50
order.
I know what they did.
It's not because I had sent it over.
Yeah.
They're not comfortable with that.
Did the irrigations with 4,006 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is not, they raised this to 270.
Okay. It is 6 o'clock. We are going to call the Clickstack County Public Economic Development Authority regular meeting to order. Begin with roll call. Let the record show we have a quorum.
Okay, so I show present Jacob Anderson, Michael Kennedy, Dan Christopher, Dale Cannell, John Derrick, Leslie Hebert, Ryan Krebs, Dave McClure, that being himself, Doug Miller, Dave Sauter. We also have his guest, Lorena Lowell, sorry. I had a little block there. Lynn Zielinski, Richard Foster, and Jessica Meta. Did I miss anyone?
Hey, Marla Kiesler just joined from White Salmon.
Hi, Marla.
Hi, guys.
Good evening. Okay, for the agenda, we're going to move the SBDC update up to right after the meeting minutes, if that's okay with everyone. With that, I'd accept a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion and a second to adopt the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion
Aye.
carries. All right, next, February 22, 2022 meeting minutes. Has anybody seen any changes in the meeting minutes? They were very thorough. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion. Got a motion and a second to adopt the meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, Ms. Lowell, SBDC update.
Thank you. So it's a very concrete, I've been out of town for 4 days, 5 days working in our certification. So it's a very concrete, and I have a few other things that are not in the report. So if we can move it to the, actually, let's go to the next slide. This is okay, so this is what we have done this year, and these numbers are for this county. So we have served 96 clients. We have 45 active clients right now for this county. The capital infusion that was reported by the clients, $2.9 million. Mainly is idle money. That was the last part of idle that came in. So we're done with those big loans. Then there's 122 jobs that were supported. And the last report, 104 were from one of the recipients, the largest recipients in Bingen for an idle loan. Then because of that money, those jobs were saved. The other 16 jobs are coming from all the little small businesses that started or restarted or had some investment. So some of jobs are not all jobs. Those are new jobs that would have not existed if we didn't secure that money. So we have 5 new businesses and we have 23 free ventures that we're working with at this time. So that's the summary. Do you guys have any questions about those numbers so far? Okay, so I've been meeting with you often. So if we can go to the next slide. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about what, and I mentioned it when I met with you guys a couple of weeks ago. I mean, my concern right now, I don't expect to see those numbers grow. I expect actually those numbers to go down. I mean, we're not finding any startup loans. You know, the economy is kind of shaky, the cost of gasoline. So we have a lot of things that are not helping us. So I just actually expect like a drop. I don't expect a drop on clients. What I expect is that we're going to start working with reorganization, a lot of organization in finances and financials, just to make sure that there's a lot of money out from idle and PPTs, and I know some of those are forgivable. But my personal concern with the portfolio that I have in the 2 counties is that the economy is not growing. There's not a lot of investment. We're actually going backwards a little bit, and there's a lot of money in loans that are going to need to start getting paid soon. So with the businesses, these $2 million are a second set of loans, which actually stresses me out a little bit more as to what's going to happen. Because those idle loans, the way that the contracts are written is, so there is a 36-month maturity accruing interest since day one. And what they're doing is when they sign the second loan, all those funds were backtracked. So there's a lot of money in interest, and the payments are double what the original loans amount were, and the interest did not go anywhere. So it's a 30 years. They're actually secured by properties over $25,000. So people can lose their houses. They can lose it's based on assets. So I'm a little concerned about how this money is going to get paid. This morning, through the certification that we had this morning a big meeting with with the Department of Commerce and SBA. I'm meeting with SBA tomorrow to kind of talk about my portfolio and our clients to make sure that everybody's aware of where the maturity date is, because they're kind of varying, and kind of see what's going to happen if we have a big recession and people cannot pay. So going with that, what I think you're going to expect is less investment, less capital in the next half of the year, probably more clients, and hopefully we can work with them so we don't start seeing closing businesses and bankruptcies. So that's where I am.
Is your sense the business owners are going into these loan positions with their eyes open, or are they just finally trying to start a business and
Yeah, I don't think that a lot of the businesses, at least the clients are not working. There's some clients that are very savvy that they have like, a couple $1 million and they are using that money to reinvest in new projects and they have the capital to pay for. The smaller loans that, 120 to 250, the payments are between $1,200 and $2,500 a month. Those ones are the ones that I'm worried. Because they were so easy. There is not a process like this following a bank, right? You basically have an application. Everybody laugh about there's the little, there's a little arrow that you can move as far as you could go, and people just got the money with not even submitting the current taxes. They just sent sign affidavits. But so my concern is, because where we were when that money was given, and we're almost into the 2 years from the first time round of funding, and the amount of interest that is been accrued, and now where we are, which was not expected 2 years ago, and these businesses really do have a business plan, they have a plan, but it's not. With the amount of the increase on costs with the gasoline, we still have supplies that haven't been delivered. It's a lot of lockage of steel for these businesses, and it's a lot of money. So
Were
I
the
am,
loans a fixed interest rate?
yeah, but it's about between 3 and 4%. I forgot exactly what was it, 3.75 or 4.25. It's between 3 and 4.5. I forgot exactly.
Better than 16%.
So that's where we are, and that's my biggest concern. There's a lot of money in this county. For the county that we are, for the size of county, for the amount of businesses that we have, the challenges that we have, that's a lot of money in loans. And that's just what I have done. I have no idea. I will find out tomorrow when I meet with a representative from SBA for our region. I will know tomorrow exactly how much money is out in our accounts. But I expect it's gonna be at least twice as much as I have on my portfolio, because I started, manage and close those loans from January to date. And mainly the last day was May, the last loan was closed on May 1st. And the last disbursement was June 30th. So it's a lot of money.
are a lot of the businesses in very vulnerable industries. I'm thinking leisure and hospitality. If there's a downturn in the economy, they're going to get nailed first.
Yeah, and I'm already seeing the restaurants struggling again. And then, with the threat of COVID back, some restrictions, it wasn't a conversation. Then we have yesterday in Spokane, seems like King County is going to do mandate COVID restrictions again. The whole thing. So I think we are in a position that, again, my priority with my clients is that we're solid in the budgets and we're solid in the spending, that there's no more no buying equipment, no buying a lot of stuff that is not needed, and making sure that at least they can pay these loans for about a year. Because they're not having just SBA loans. They have the mortgages and they have all their normal loans, and they use this money. So that's the tricky part. Then they have their normal loans and normal expenses, and they use the SBA money to pay. They couldn't pay during COVID, right? So the debt didn't go, and they were kind of surviving with borrowed money. So that's my concern.
And those loans start 30 months after origination, correct?
Right, but the caveat is like, if, for example, if somebody got a loan on April 2021 was the first year, 2019, 2021, excuse me, 2020 is the first disbursement. So we are on the second year. They're going to start paying in October, but the interest goes back to the first day. If they got a second round, it doesn't matter. It's going to go back to the full pay. In October 1st, they're going to start to have to be paying the full amount. It's not going to be like, the first 120 and then we do the second 100. No, they're going to have to start paying absolutely the $2,500 a month.
Were these PPP money or is this EDL?
No, this isn't idle money. The PPP is forgivable. Idle, it has been stressed very strongly that idle is not gonna be forgivable by any chance. Now, on the potential good part for us is, I'm gonna let Dave talk more about it, but the Department of Commerce is releasing $7 million for Washington State on grants. This is money that is not gonna have to be repaid, and it's actually to support COVID businesses again. They were gonna concentrate in some industries, but it was decided by the director of the Department of Commerce they're gonna make it broader, so that people that actually is in trouble. The Department of Commerce, SBA, Small Business Development Center, all of us are seeing what's gonna happen. I don't wanna be negative, but I just have fear that businesses are gonna start crashing. And I think that what Commerce is doing by giving this $7 million, the application is gonna be open on next week, July 12th. So I'm gonna do a big push tomorrow, the rest of the week and next week, for people to kind of start looking into these applications and making sure that we help them to process, hopefully to relieve a little bit of the impact that all these loans are gonna have, and the change of the economy is gonna have in the next 6 months.
Just a little update on that. I think the loans program's gonna open for applications on the 7th.
Well, 12 or 17, but it's gonna be this month. It's just 2 weeks. It's only gonna be open for 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's gonna be
$7 million. We are gonna, all of us in SBA, SBDC, and Commerce, we're gonna start pushing it tomorrow to make sure that we get as many applicants. So what I expect is that, that's gonna increase my clients' load for people who are gonna come to me to help them to gonna get those applications finished. So that's where we are with the any questions about that?
If I may.
Of course.
So when will we know, you said you're gonna find out as far as the number, because I'm really curious as far as how many businesses are we potentially affected in Klickitat County as say a percentage of the overall economy in Klickitat County?
I have a meeting
You know,
tomorrow at 9:20, at 9:30 in the morning.
Where is it, and what sectors? Is it concentrated in certain sectors? Is it broadly across? Is it?
I will have a meeting at 9:30 in the morning with Jenny, which is Jenny Sacco, which is actually my direct contact in SBA. And then what I will do is I will send you a summary and email to all of you, to Lee, and then she can send it to you right away. So you will have the numbers tomorrow. And I will keep you posted as I'm getting updates. We're gonna get into a weekly meetings with the Department of Commerce and with SBA and SBDC to be able to try to jump in with whatever strategies we can, because the last thing we want to see is all these businesses crashing after we help them to get the loans.
Do you guys have, if this loan is, this 7 million is only available for 2 weeks, do you guys have the capacity with economic development to handle all of those businesses that are gonna be coming in here?
What's the statewide?
It's not gonna come through us
So,
like some of the earlier ones.
Right.
Applying to Commerce.
Right.
So our only job in this is getting the word out that the grant program's available. And last week I sent some announcements to 2 chambers and asked them
Right.
to push the information out to their networks.
Are we going to send an email to our business list?
I have not yet, Kim.
I will prepare the press release in the morning after I talk to SBA and Commerce, and I'll send it to you, David. And if you want to send it to the list, that will be great. So just in case, and I get more information, because today they were changing some of the criteria to be able to help more businesses, and they were gonna change some language. That's what we're doing this morning. So I will.
And it's
I will
sort of
send
open
it-
evolving.
I will send it to you midday as soon as I finish with this. So I'm sorry it's not great news, but that's where we are. And it's great to see that we got $2.9 million in money, but I just hope it doesn't hurt us. Then there's so much more money out.
There's a lot more.
Right. So that is what's happening with the loans and the clients that I have. And just a quick update with daycare. So in the last 2 days, there is one person, the last 2-3 days, right, Richard? A lady then approached Richard and us she's living in Glenwood, and she is exploring the possibility to open a daycare center in the area. My feeling, just based on the emails, I have not spoken with her directly, is that she's more thinking about on either White Salmon or Glenwood or that area. She does have experience. So I will be trying to meet with her next week. And then there's one person, it's a home daycare center that actually opened in Dallas-Fort, and they received one of the kids that we talked the last time with Leslie. So it was delivered today. So it was good news, and I'm meeting with them tomorrow also about whatever is happening with these daycares. So that's on the daycare. And then also with commerce, there's a team, and I'm part of the team of what they're gonna do is they're gonna get a study group with some employers, different size employers, and we're gonna have a discussion of what the employers need for daycare, kind of like similar and what we have been discussing. So I will keep you posted on what's happening with those conversations, but the Department of Commerce is leading that. And then just a quick notes about me. I'm gonna get my export certification the second week of August. So I will be certified as an export certificate, export, whatever, CPA. And then I'm gonna be on a medical leave for 1 week on August 3rd, but I have people covering me from my main office. So I will be completely out for 1 week. I have people covering me, including my supervisor and some peers and Spokane, and then I'll be back on the 9th.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
I'll send you the notes tomorrow after my meeting. I'm gonna step up, okay?
All right, thank you.
Of course. Have a good evening. Thank you. Uh-huh.
Next up, we're gonna move into McEd's SEDS update. Just a minute.
Thank you. Madam Chair. I have a presentation that Richard is going to share. Again, Jessica Mehta, I'm Executive Director for the Mid-Columbia Economic Development District. McEd is how we say it. Richard, I'll tell you when to move the slide. Just as a brief reminder of who McEd is and what we do, we work to promote the creation of family wage jobs, the diversification of the economic base, and the growth and retention of industry in our 5 counties. So what you see here, Hood River, Klickitat, Sherman, Skamania, and Wasco counties. Our work falls into 3 main focus areas. Number 1 is business assistance. So we do have business lending programs. We work closely with our SPDCs like Lorena. We also provide some direct training for businesses and industry cluster development. Our second focus area is regional coordination. So there we focus on challenges or opportunities that impact communities across boundaries, such as renewable energy development, broadband access, and transportation. We also, our third focus area, technical assistance, and that's where we support grant administration for complex federally funded projects. We provide economic development services and project management support for key efforts that are related to our mission. So what I'm presenting today is our SEDS, our Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. This provides a robust framework for community-based economic development in the region. You can't advance the slide now. So we do this every 5 years under the direction of the U.S. Economic Development Administration, but also just in recognition that this planning is a successful way to engage community leaders and leverage the involvement of the private sector to establish a blueprint for strong regional collaboration. The main sections of the strategy are listed here on this slide, and I'm going to be walking through those. Next slide. So the strategy was developed across 2021 with 7 public sessions and more than 100 participants throughout the series, including local and tribal governments, regional partners, ports, chambers, legislatures, state and federal partners, businesses, and individuals. And each event focused on one section of the strategy and they built upon each other. The strategy, we also included feedback from some focus groups, specifically with our Latino and Native American communities, and an online survey opportunities throughout. And then we presented the draft at our annual economic symposium, and then it was adopted by the MCED board in March of 2022. Go ahead. So as I mentioned, the region covered in the strategy is our 5 counties with their approximately 88,000 residents and numerous communities. We have a long history of working together and realizing how closely our economic fates are connected. The strategy document also summarizes our regional economic conditions across a number of measures and provides a lot of data in an appendix for folks that like data. There's definitely a lot of data. In the summary here, we note, for example, that the region has a high share of Native American and Latino residents and veterans. The housing market continues to grow tighter and our poverty rate is slowly declining. The next slide. So the next, throughout the public sessions, we did focus on 2 themes, so resilience and equitable outcomes. Resilience addresses how well we've prepared for and can respond to economic shocks, such as natural disasters, disease, and man-made disruptions. And then equitable outcomes considers how economic opportunity throughout the region can be accessed by everyone living here across all demographics. Next slide. And of course, this whole thing was developed under the umbrella of COVID-19. So this was the first time that our year-long process was fully remote. We kept hoping that we would be able to have some in-person meetings, which is one of the best parts of the whole process is the networking. We usually involve some industry tours, which are really popular. So, but to no avail, we were all remote. And it shifted the picture of our economy. So it was built, our first session was presenting a COVID-19 economic needs assessment that MCED prepared in early 2021 that determined our local needs and priorities to help us understand the impacts from the pandemic and identify opportunities to collaborate around the issues. So this slide shows recovery priorities from our COVID-19 economic needs assessment. So, from broadband, childcare, and housing to support for our small businesses, workforce training, and building our resiliency. Next slide. So the next session developed a SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This slide lists the summary, and the full document lists details under each item that's listed here. So these are under strengths and assets. For example, the scenic beauty, recreation, brand, and tourism industry. There are more items under that. That's a heading. And it's not uncommon, depending on what aspect of something that we're looking at, for different facets to be both a strength and a weakness, or an opportunity and a threat. So for example, our regional transportation system, including transit, has seen a lot of growth, but our transportation infrastructure can be weaknesses considering our bridges and the need for redundancy. Some notable items are our strong industry sectors, the challenges of the disparities between Oregon and Washington, which can also present an opportunity for collaboration and additional funding, and the threats from drought, fire, and changing weather patterns. Next slide. So from the SWOT analysis, the next session was building on that to develop the regional vision, a bi-state Mid-Columbia region with a resilient, thriving, sustainable rural economy that supports equitable access to diverse business opportunities that act in harmony with the area's unique qualities, values, cultural, and natural resources. I like to say that we tried to get all of the words in there. I feel pretty confident that we've got almost all of them. There was a lot that everyone wanted to ensure was included in the vision statement. We also crafted goal statements for our 4 focus areas. Next slide. Strong businesses, robust workforce, resilient infrastructure, and powerful collaboration. So for strong businesses, we plan to, the next slide. Enhance business innovation, retention, and expansion, and entrepreneurship through equitable access to support services and capital, diversifying our industry mix, and enhance coordination to address barriers to growth and sustainability. The key industries that were identified in the strategy, had some of our presentations were based on research that we got from the University of Oregon that covered all 5 of our counties to talk about what are our strong industries. So we included natural resources and value-added agriculture, manufacturing and especially beverage manufacturing, high tech and especially unmanned systems, healthcare, utilities and renewable energy, and arts, culture, tourism, and recreation. Next slide. So each goal area includes a detailed action plan with numerous strategies and tasks to achieve the goal statement that was presented. So for strong businesses, our strategies focus on building a strong network to support our existing businesses, developing additional space, targeting the key industries that I just mentioned to support their growth, and bringing in new businesses and helping bring more wealth to the region through exports. Next slide. So for robust, and of course, if there's questions, go ahead and stop me. Robust workforce, we plan to cultivate a talented multicultural workforce through diverse family wage career training aligned with industry needs while providing essential infrastructure supports for workforce participation in each community. And this is the first time, next slide, where the workforce plan, while through the SEDS, this is the first time that childcare, the need for childcare really came up. For a number of our updates of the SEDS, we have discussed the need for attainable housing and what a barrier to economic development that is. And then this is the first time that childcare was raised as a barrier to economic development. So we put that under this workforce action plan. But we also included educational opportunities from pre-K to 12th grade and higher education, basic skills training, quality workplaces for our new employees to support economic growth. The next goal area, resilient infrastructure, we plan to ensure our communities and businesses have reliable, resilient access to infrastructure, including attainable housing, high capacity broadband, sustainable sources of energy, and emergency services, among others, to support our future population demands and economic opportunities. And this is actually the longest action plan in the strategy. Is there a number of important facets that of our infrastructure system that justify their own sections. So these included water and wastewater that meet the needs of our existing and future residents and businesses, especially as drought conditions continue. Housing that's available and affordable for the workforce in our region. Next slide. Included strategies about broadband that reaches those last mile customers and includes redundancy to connect our residents and businesses to opportunities for education, for healthcare, for jobs and customers. Energy systems that are renewable, resilient, efficient, and support all of our communities, even during disruptive events. And then a multimodal transportation system that provides a safe, efficient, equitable, accessible system that enhances our livability, resilience, and economic vitality. So the next slide. The transportation section is one of the largest ones. We actually had a number of meetings specifically only to developing the transportation access action plan, considering how important our transportation system is to the economy. And then the last goal area was powerful regional collaboration. Next slide. We plan to effectively collaborate and advocate as a bi-state region to leverage our economic assets to reach those goals. So this one, this goal is unique in that it referenced the actions here as a tool to support work towards the other 3 goal areas that we mentioned. So this one is really in service of the other 3. And then the action plan under this really talked about how we could build our information and advocacy systems and build on the strong collaborative networks that we already have. So that's where, as I mentioned, we have a long history of collaborating. And that's something I hear as I work across the states that Oregon or Washington or even some national levels is recognition of how well we collaborate in the region. So this is just trying to build on that. The next part of the strategy, next slide, includes metrics for each of the goal areas to gauge the success of our work and help us understand changes over time. And these are items that MCED plans to track throughout the period of the strategy. And something I should mention is that the action plan, so we do really believe that, so the strategy was developed by the region for the region. It's not just outlining actions that MCED is going to take. It's so much bigger than just anything that our organization could do. So that's where it also relies on partners like Klickitat County Economic Development to help move towards the goals outlined here. And also it builds on the plan that Klickitat County has developed for itself. Okay, that's what I want to say. The next slide, the one element of the strategy that's updated annually and that this group participates in is the list of essential economic development projects that you prioritize every year. So the whole strategy, the whole 60-page document is updated every 5 years, but it includes an appendix of that year's top key economic development projects. And that's what you help provide feedback to the Klickitat County Board of Commissioners. Going to so this is Oregon's top 10 projects. So the MCED board collects the top 10 projects from each of our 5 counties and then weaves them together to come up with a regional top 10 list for Oregon and top 10 for Washington. So this is Oregon's top 10 list. You see the bridge, sometimes the bridge, the Hood River White Salmon Bridge rotates really between the Oregon and Washington side to recognize that it's a key project for both sides of the river. Moving to the next slide is Washington's list. And this is where it's going to be a little bit more interesting for you. So, you know, this list focuses on infrastructure projects that are needed to support our communities and businesses and that increase resiliency. Since it's developed annually, we really focus on projects that expect to see movement or apply for funding in the next year and need this additional layer of support. By being listed in the SEDS, that's it's essential if you're applying for a grant from the U.S. Economic Development Administration, but it's beneficial if you are applying for other federal or state grants, for example. So this is where your projects fell when we blended them with Skamania counties as well. You can leave it on this side, but the whole process was thanks to a lot of people and partners. Richard was on our SED steering committee. So we had a steering committee of public-private partners across the 5-county region to provide feedback on the structure as we were developing the series. We also, most of my staff and board members, like Commissioner Sauter, were involved. We had presentations from each of the counties to share an overview of the economy of each of the 5 counties. We were also sponsored by the U.S. Economic Development Administration and Northwest Natural, and then involved the next door for those focus groups that I mentioned. You can go to the last slide. Those all used. So I neglected to grab the hard copy document as I was walking out of my office. A couple of you in this room have one. If you really like hard copies, let me know and I can send one to you. But we also put it into a more usable virtual format than in prior years. So it's at gorgeeconomy.org. And you can dig into all those sections, the data and the appendix. You also can see we have a summary document that's only about 12 pages, and then the full document, which I mentioned is longer. I think that is all I was going to say. And I do really appreciate the work that we get to do in partnership with Klickitat EDA, having Richard on the committee. And again, I'm happy to take any questions or mail you a hard copy of our strategy for the region.
Any questions?
So on slide 7 of 24, you write access to water. Is it actually access to water or is it availability of water?
And this is where I was supposed to have the hard copy as well, so I could get into some of these details.
I'm just, when I read it, access to me means there's a river, there's a stream I can get to, and availability is like there's drinking water that's.
We were focused on like drinking water.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
or I don't think the plan really talks a whole lot about irrigation, but it's mostly drinking water.
And on slide 13 of 24, you have childcare. And my question is, are the people that we're looking at, are they able to meet the state requirements for providing childcare? Because there's a whole list of requirements that weren't there 5 years ago.
Right.
And they're not easy. It's not an easy thing. I mean, your housing has to be a particular model. It has to meet certain square footage. You have to have access to, back door, front door entry. I mean, there's all kinds of things. The reason why I can talk to that is because I was at a workshop with Jim Mossberger several years ago. It was a big platform. A lot of people came. So, and then number 22 of 24 is, I just read somewhere that Carson Water just got a big grant, big dollar grant for their water treatment plant. So, from out of
Yes.
their butler's office.
Oh, that's great.
So,
I know we submitted a letter of support. On the childcare thing I would mention, so I think probably with some of the tasks that are under that strategy involve, training for the employees to make sure that we have the workforce that we need. Often, I wouldn't be surprised in this where I can't remember if it includes an advocacy item around some of those unattainable state regulations.
I guess why I picked up on the child care, the lady that's there, I mean, she talks about the child care, but
It doesn't.
are you vetting that this person actually can do what
Right.
the requirements say they needs to? That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Bill had one.
Yeah.
So I've got, between slide 22 and 21, I noticed one interesting thing that all of the SED's top priorities in Oregon and Washington are all publicly, they have some public nexus, except for our number one, which is Golden Dome Pump Storage Hydro, which is our number one project, but yet it's all going to be public or private financing, unless there's something that I've missed in that. And so I've always thought about that as kind of weird that, of all the things that we're talking about for, the comprehensive economic development strategy, our number one project is now past that point where the PUD's put in a lot of money, a lot of money's been put into it, but now it's almost been given over. The private sector's going to take it on. Should that still be our number one priority if it doesn't have that public nexus?
I was just turned in this spring, so we could revisit.
Yeah, really start.
I think, and maybe Doug, you can speak to this because I really don't know, but it's going to be served by the PUD's public water system down at the aluminum plant. So there is likely to be some upgrades to that's needed. And it's not only to serve that, but there are other prospective businesses that are looking at that facility. So maybe this could help with that.
Maybe I could take a wild swing at this. I mean, yes, the PUD has some interest in it because there's station power that you can sell, which you can sell X number of megawatts or kilowatts or even single watts. I mean, it benefits the entire utility because it's a large load based in one spot. So, as far as the amount of poles, transformers, everything, it's all based in one area. The water system, it is a public water system, Cliffs water system. And that in the big picture is, it benefits the Cliffs water system in particular, but the overreaching of it is it benefits all the communities that have water in some form, because actually I shouldn't say that, because we moved the water, the Cliffs water is now underneath the electrical side rather than being with the rest of the water sources. So it more affects the ability of the being able to provide water for this particular project and have some reserves for other future developments in that same area. So I think if you build one, there's a possibility there's another project or two that might come in the area. I can't speak specifically, but I think there is. What was the third thing on that? So there's the water, the electric. And the biggest benefit I can see without being a beauty commissioner is the tax base that will affect every person in this county and all the school district, the hospital district. Those are all public entities, and the fire districts. I mean, they're all going to have a big major benefit if this thing comes in. I mean, the hit that all those local services took when the aluminum plant dropped out is potentially going to be replaced by something that actually has a bigger tax base. So I think the benefit for the public is there. Yeah, it's privately funded, to get there, but the aftermarket availability of public dollars, I think it's a good thing. So
I concur.
That's my spiel.
Doug, I
I
completely.
say, I think it's privately funded, but it's the most important thing on that list as far as I'm concerned. So,
We've had very active discussion with all three federal legislators. They may see it as private, but I think in their eyes, it's a public-private partnership because they're very much involved in getting this to actually get through the federal system and get the taxing, because that's where it will really begin to benefit the county, or school district, or hospital district. I think lots going to come out, enormous amount as far as.
And then there's the whole thing about integrating all this renewable energy that's coming online next decade.
I completely agree with all of that. I just wanted.
It wasn't
point
a
in
public. And we just took the opportunity to jump on.
Okay, any other questions for this month? Hearing done. All right, thank you. Okay. All right, let's move on to the resolution setting our board of directors regularly meeting schedule.
Yeah, so we need to do this. Open Public Meetings Act was updated this last legislative session. One of the things that we need to do is have an established regular meeting schedule. And it's been more historically one that's sort of bounced around in terms of time. So typically we meet on a Tuesday because we've got all three commissioners in town looking at the mayor's and the port and those officials' meeting schedules. The only day that was open consistently was the fourth Tuesday, except for Doug. The PUDs, you meet on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month.
Yeah, we'll make it work.
Yeah, but you're in town and you usually start at 2:00. So what this resolution does is establish 6 p.m. the fourth Tuesday of the first calendar first month of each calendar quarter of the year. So that's our proposed schedule, and if you agree, I appreciate the resolution.
I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
second, since nobody else is jumping up.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Is there a reason here for it? For your own joy, or
You see those
Did you read the
copious minutes?
did you read?
That's how that happens.
I'm like, did you read the law? I read the law, or?
Yeah, we don't have to record it. It's just, it makes it easier to make sure the minutes are.
Okay, let's move on to the .09 fund update.
All right. So I think we have hard copies of the status of this. I don't think the people on the screen have it, but we started getting .09 funds on Strasburg County sales and use tax in 1998. And since then till July 15th of this year, we've collected a total of $6,596,000. We've expended $3,710,000, And so we currently have a balance of $2,886,602.88. We have committed funding for economic development, staff wages and benefits, and that includes $40,000 that we've repurposed. Instead of paying staff wages, we're paying for the SBDC for Lorena's office and the operation of that. So we've got 120,000 obligated this year. We have 700,000 obligated for the Dallasport Business Park infrastructure, which brings a total of $820,700, leaving an available fund balance of $2,065,902.88.
And this, is this as of June 30th?
This is as of this July 15th. It's highlighted in yellow.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm working on my county budget. And I'd like to discuss with you continuing to recommend that the county allocate funding for economic development staff and continue with our funding of the SBDC. The SBDC is $40,000. And when I prepare my budget and look at that 20% that we've historically used, I always look to the year prior. So I've got a fixed revenue amount. So I'm looking back at 2021 when we collected $645,000. So with the 20% of that plus 40,000 is $169,034. And if we subtract that from our available fund balance, that would leave us a balance of $1,896,869. However, I'd also like to ask, we have discussed increasing this funding amount for staff to provide for an additional economic development specialist. I did that back in was 2020 and COVID hit and we didn't do it. So I would like to be able to increase that percentage from 20 to 25%, continue to get the 40,000. So that would be a total of $201,292 at 25%. The difference between 25 and 20% is $32,258. And so I'm going to be talking with the Board of County Commissioners later this week about that. And I'm quite certain it's going to be a challenge adding staff because the county is tightening its belt. It did last year, and I expect it again this year. And the chances of me getting that extra staff position, if I can't bring sufficient funding to the table other than county revenue, is not good. But there's no guarantee. If the board doesn't approve an extra staff position, I'll look at doing the 20%. If they agree to have another staff position added to my department, then I would increase it. And so I'm asking your recommendation either to continue at 20% or increase to 25% and to continue to fund the SBDC.
Question first, is your ask going to fully fund that new FTE? I guess the reason I asked this, and I will come forward, that I kind of put this thought in Dave's here. I look at the work that both Dave does and Richard does, and I find it highly valuable. I think the dollars that are spent on them come back tenfold. Lorena, same way. So, we spend $440,000 on her and she brings back $2 million in the community. What can we do if we had one more of them? unfortunately, with our budget on the county, we can't, when you start dipping into reserves, you can't make new hires. Unless that funding comes from somewhere, whether it's state grants or whatnot. So that was this ask, was whether this board would be willing to fund another position. Another Richard per se, that could then go out and spend more time bringing money into this county. So that was my question to him, was whether his ask of going from 20 to 25% and not to 28 or some other number would be enough to fully fund FTE.
I'd have to take a look, but 32,000 is not, well, I think we can get them funded with the 0.09. And we do have a $75,000 grant that is as well. I'll have to go back and look at the numbers.
What $75,000 is that?
The economic development grant from Commerce.
Do we currently get that?
Yep.
And do we currently use it on Richard?
We do.
So it's already being used on Richard, how are we gonna fund somebody new with it?
What do you mean? Okay, so the $75,000 grant, it pays most of Richard's time. Benefits are paid by the county by $0.09. And then some of my time was on that grant as well.
You'd be able to get a bigger grant?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the question.
I can't get a bigger grant unless Commerce does it. Well, the legislature would have to.
Well, that's, I guess, my question is if you're only asking this board for an additional 30,000, where are we getting the rest of the money for the FTE?
We're using all of that money now.
Right.
I'm spending most of my time, like 75% of my time in economic development and billable to this. If we got another person, I'll be able to move some of my time out a little bit, bring it down to like 65%, put some more into natural resources. So it's just how I balance.
So you'll be, by getting the extra 30 out of this group, if they so deem it worthy, you won't have to come before the Board of Commissioners next year asking for county money to fund that position.
This is early in the process.
You're being recorded.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I should have brought some spreadsheets down.
That's what I was asking. Are you
Yeah,
asking?
I know I know I can do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if I may.
I mean, there's other costs.
Yeah, because I think the bottom line, when we had this discussion 2 or 3 years ago, or maybe it was longer ago that, because I think this board actually did authorize additional dollars out of 09 to add a position. Because we have the discussion, which has been a movement for us, is that we had historically the 09 money was not used at all for any. The county just paid for all of it, and we started looking at our ability. That's getting harder and harder to just pay for everything. And, we had the luxury of reserving that money for bricks and mortar is basically what we were using it for, and nothing. And there is no other economic development organization in the state of Washington that does that. We were the last one that started tapping 09. I'm pretty safe, I think, saying that. So I guess the question to this board is, I'm less concerned about the 20 to 25. It's like, do we want to take the resources that we have, and do we think it's a worthy investment to spend some additional 09 dollars for an additional staff person? Because that's what we need to do if we're going to do that, because you can bring your spreadsheets, that's great, but in the end, the county is not going to, if it takes other resources to fund an additional staff person at this time, I don't think we can do that. And so I
would be coming back to this board.
Right. And so I think that's whatever that number, I don't care if it's 25 or 28 or whatever. I think the question that's before this board is is that something we want to invest $9 in? Another staff position? And it'll, if it's 25 or 28% or whatever it is.
Are there limits on .09 that you can go on staff versus regular?
No,
As long as it's qualified, which this does qualify, you can spend 100% of your money. I mean, I don't say many, I don't know exactly, but, typically economic development departments are funded completely out of .09. No local or county resources like we do it here. We were an anomaly.
What do we average get per year in .09? Do you know off the top of your head? Throw me a ballpark.
so here's the words. I don't have a number here. We're, last year was high, year before with the COVID was 400,000. Last year was
450 over the last 5 years.
Yeah. So
300.
I mean, I'm certainly not
305,
advocating that we do something that, because I like that we're able to make investments into bricks and mortar. I'm a bricks and mortar guy, but I also think, I think Commissioner Christopher is correct in that I think those investments that we make in that staff person many times pay a better rate of return on our public investment than, putting $300,000 towards a, building at the port or, those are good. Port's not here tonight, so those are good things to fund, but
And
an FTE reaches.
an FTE reaches more people.
yeah, and I'll come clean. The reason I was him on largely was because I'm still in the red a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be burning fund balance.
Yeah.
So
So Dave, what would this do for budget 2024 then? I imagine this would be carried forward then.
yeah, we would.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's right.
would be looking to carry forward. Because I
Well,
don't
it
want
seems
to
to me
hire
that
somebody and go through the.
We thought it was a
challenge
good
of
idea
bringing
back
it down.
then. It makes sense to me. So is that the magic number, 25 though?
I think it,
I don't think so.
I don't think so, but I think it's more like
With my county battle, I don't think it's,
If we do go
I think
to,
there's a gap there.
if we go to a recession, can those .09 numbers, that number could go down, correct?
Yeah.
So, and is this voted on every year then, the percentage, or,
Well, every year I come back to you for the recommendation.
okay.
So it ultimately is the Board of County Commissioners' decision, but they have historically looked to this board for all expenditures out of that fund. Some
So
input and recommendation.
I would look to the mayor's, never mind, she just left. Thank you, Ms. Hewitt.
So I would say yes, sorry.
Thank you for interrupting, is always normal. We talk all the time. I want to hear from the rest of you guys, what you all think. And Mayor Marla, can you hear us very well?
Hi, I hear you guys.
Any thoughts?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I know that I have a strong opinion about allocating additional funds at this point for more personal. I think there's good arguments for why that would be helpful right now in the county. I think I'm interested long-term in evaluating how overall those .09 fundings are apportioned across the county. And maybe there's an opportunity at a future date to discuss considering an allocation that actually goes directly to cities and ports so that these other entities in the county have some of those .9 funds directly at their disposal to make some decisions also about economic development in our areas of the county.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Yeah. And just to put it in context too, just go ahead.
Why is it a percent and not a dollar amount? Is there a reason why it ends up being a percentage of?
It's just what we did. I took a look, here's what we've got, here's what's coming in. What seems reasonable out of this is a fraction of the revenue stream.
I'm seeing it looks like it fluctuates enough. I just wondered if it, maybe that works, but that was just my question.
Yeah, it was 120,000. The 20% last year was 120,000. This year is 80. So, yeah.
Other thoughts?
Does the county, I haven't really followed in your guys' budget. Are you guys cutting positions? Or are you, how is the overall counties, you guys maintaining, or is it? I mean, I'm just thinking if we are going into a recession, how is that gonna affect the county?
Like that, or what?
It's kind of a little-
I'll step on it. That's fine. I'll jump
I
on
think
the wagon.
I think we're watching that. Because we don't know, I mean, if we go into a downturn or are in a downturn, it's inevitable. I mean, we've done this before, that there will be a hit to our revenues. I mean, we've always seen a general economic slowdown does translate into tons at the landfill, which is a direct, we get paid per ton. And so it is really strange how much of a economic indicator what people throw away is. And so we would see loss of revenue there. Our property tax revenues, we've never seen. I mean, that's the thing about property taxes. It's super solid. Doesn't go up, but it's very solid. But then our sales tax too, and we have kind of banked on, we raised, after a lot of soul searching, we implemented the second half a percent sales tax, to kind of cover what was kind of the structural deficits there. So yeah, we could. And then if it was like, 08, 09, we, by 2010, we bought ourselves a year, in 2009, and we didn't make we made some significant staff cuts permanent in 2010. So you could see that again. And so, but everything that we do is always budgets are guesses, is all they are. And every one of us, you have no guarantee that you're going to have a job.
I'm just thinking, I'm a safety kind of guy, and I like to have money there, but I also am like, Richard, if you could actually get an ROI directly on what he did, what he brought to the county, that would be, which there's a magic number that says he brought $400,000, but also the pump storage, if that goes through, that's substantial.
That's completely different, right?
Yeah, but that adds a lot.
Oh,
That's like 15% to the county's, in revenue, isn't it?
It would be more than that.
Okay.
It would be, if you think just from a tax statement, if it's privately constructed where it is, there will be sales tax unless it gets exempted by the state.
Right.
But the assessed value, it adds, if you're talking, if it goes on the tax rolls,
Yeah.
the whole assessed value of the county we're getting close to 4 billion. It's 2 billion. So
that could be.
We
don't know.
We won't.
That'll be great, but
that'll be
that's
great, but
4
we
years
don't
from
know.
now. I guess I'd say my other argument is budget wise, are we hiring new staff? No. Did we lay off staff last year? Yes. Will there be more layoffs potentially? Maybe. But I would argue that I don't see any of those coming in economic development, because even if you were in a downturn or recession, what is your number one focus? Economic development.
Yeah.
So don't you want another employee helping out those small businesses?
Yeah.
That it's kind of where I see it kind of being a double whammy, no brainer, that you have another employee that can then help the city reach out and get a grant, or help that city fix their, wastewater. These guys are bogged down. And so can I afford it out of my budget to hire another employee? If I could, then I've already had it. The other departments, no, this one can. So that's where I'm at.
Yes.
And maybe in the background, I look at it differently, but there's a lot of very unusual things happening in this state that focus on Clickett County in very, very positive economic growth ways. That pump storage is just the tip of it. Data centers and all the rest that seem to be lining up. And when we talk about things like Golden Dale pump storage, that goes on the national news in the economic development side or energy side. We're into the point where I think we're at a kind of a tipping point. We need to invest in economic development to give them the resources to keep moving forward, or else we could easily stagnate just because we didn't have enough support. think it's really a good investment.
Now, Richard and I spent a lot of time going from alligator to alligator.
Richard, do you need more help?
Yeah, I would say I would need more help. I mean, if you're gonna ask for my opinion.
Yeah, there you go.
I would say it's very difficult. There's so for in the past contracts, we've had one major portion that was on there was, for instance, 65 meetings for community engagement. So for instance, our lovely Sikh folks, it wasn't just them, it was the different community councils or water districts or transportation meetings and everything. Right now we have just me. And so I was just showing Dave just the things that are out there that are in our peripherals that I'm just spinning plates on. There's about 25 items I'm just spinning plates on. So I picked my 2 or 3 that I'm like, I have got to get these 2 or 3 things forward. But it's very easy for somebody to come up with a good idea from the Good Idea Fairy and say, hey, we should get Richard involved in this. And then that thing pulls me to the side.
Yeah.
away from making meaningful progress on the 2 or 3 big things that I'm like really trying to get through that have got the really big impacts, if that makes sense. But if you had, and one of the drawbacks of that is when I'm spinning plates, some of those plates are going to fall off and crash. And one of those is going to be things like community engagement. So when you look at, attending different, just different meetings in general, you're going to find me a little, as you probably have already seen me this first 6 months or so since we've come out of COVID, I haven't been able to be as present as I usually am, just because of the amount of things that are out there. So I would say if you had one more person, I think you could get a pretty good idea on I think the ROI is there. So.
Was there any asks on that 09 funding right now, other than the cemetery district? Is that
I
coming?
mean, the cemetery district would come from a different pot of money. That's it.
And then one thing I can bring up is this board authorized the 250,000 to Goldendale wastewater. My teammates agreed today. We are putting in a request to put that under landfill gas. So there'll be an ask for that to come out of landfill gas, and if it does, then the 250 from here goes back into that account.
You'll get your money. It's okay.
You'll get it either way.
You kind of never.
But the landfill gas fund is ideally meant for wastewater and that kind of thing. So to me, that's a much better use of
We're good
dollars.
to our cause.
And then if we can put those back in here to use those for economic development, to me, that's just a better, so we're exploring that avenue right now.
So it was really helpful to see Lorena's presentation today and actually see it quantified and see that ROI. And so if there was a way for the whole department to be able to do that, I think it supports, the request for another person and to be able to actually quantify and objectively say, this is the return to the county. Some of those are intangibles and how do you assign to a number to 65 community, meetings but just, I'm on the board and I don't know what all you guys do. I've been on the board for a few years. And I've worked, I had the opportunity to work with the Reds Project. It was great to see, the value that you could bring. But I think from my perspective, it just helps to be able to quantify it.
Maybe we'll get something together for next meeting.
And
And I do agree another position would be great.
I'll talk a little bit about my fears is that I agree another position would be great. It's exactly what we want. Like you, I'm kind of let's watch this. I'm a little worried about where this economy is going. We're already seeing that we're down on our sales tax revenue from last year from the expected. We heard that from our fiscal manager today. We're running behind. I expect that to run further behind as the year goes on. So in order to get to that, $201,000, I see that going up from 25% into 28, and if sales tax goes down, that just keeps going higher and higher. Also, I'm thinking that that's only $32,000. That means we have about 80,000+ or so that we're gonna have to come up with. That's the difference. Subtract moving some of your time away and putting it in natural resources. If that budget can handle it, that's fine, but I still don't see that being $80,000, especially going with that difference.
Except there's already a spreadsheet.
And there's already ready income to spreadsheet, and I'm afraid there's gonna be a lot of ready income on all of our spreadsheets coming up in the future. That we're gonna have to deal with. I'd hate to hire someone and only get a year out of them. Just because the economy turns, even though that's when we'd like to be investing in it. I just hate thinking that that's a real possibility what happens here. I think that when we decided that we were going to invest in that position and we said we were going to do that, then the next thing that got dropped on our lap was the SBDC. Pretty much that next position, and we're only having to pay $40,000 for it, not $110,000. And I'd say that's an absolute win for us because she's working on all those small projects, all that outreach and everything that is what we were talking about that other position doing primarily. And so we're already getting that. So if it was the new position's going to take some of the load off of Dave for these large ultra mega projects, well, I don't know if I want somebody new coming in to take those over, and I want him doing those. So then I want, where is that person gonna be effective? I need to see that truly, like, what are they gonna do? Are they gonna work more with the cities to help the cities out? What is this person's gonna do other than spin a few more plates or go to a few meetings that Richard can't? I need more concrete money with the investment. But that's just me.
Yeah, well, I think there are a lot of areas where they could work. Richard's my Swiss Army knife, so I think to some extent, depending on the skill set we can get in this hiring environment. And what can I get and how it makes a team that works. Richard's very flexible, competent. But anyway, more to talk about.
Any final thoughts on that?
No, just so you know that my total budget for this year, including what I spend on tourism promotion, is $542,000.
That includes grants.
Like 175,000. One grant.
Okay, do we want to move into the fiscal year 2023 expenditure budget?
Well, that was it.
That was,
the discussion I had.
but no projects.
No, that was just, Richard will give an update on where we are with the projects here in a minute. But there's no ask for a project. It was just, I've got to have my budget in by the 8th. And so I was looking for some guidance from this week as to what I stick in there. 0.09.
I would say if it looks like we're going to move forward with the $750,000 or $700,000 for the airport business park infrastructure, based on what we saw today from bid openings and what I'm hearing from everyone else when I was in DC about bid openings, projects are coming in 20 to 40% higher. We better be planning that if we're going to take these dollars and move forward with this, we're going to need to move some more dollars into that figure and in that pie in order to get that project done. And we should bank for that for 2023 to be my personal thought.
Would you like me to speak on the federal EDA grant? Okay, so the federal EDA grant, I've been talking with the federal EDA in regards to the inflation. We were really scared about the inflation this last year with the drastic increase in cost of construction because we had only budgeted $700,000 with the understanding that the city was going to give us back $350,000, and the city's willing to split the cost half and half. So it's a 4-to-1 ratio as far as grant to match. So right now the total project is 3.5, and so Jeff had came back with a recent bid on it, and so it's coming out closer to 4. So it's not a full 25% increase or 33% increase, but speaking with the federal EDA, they had mentioned that they've told us repeatedly all year not to worry about the increase in inflation. So it says two things to me, and they're very adamant about it. It says two things. It says either if there is going to be an increase, it's going to continue to be at the 80% match that they're going to match us. So even if we went up $1 million and we had to put in 200,000, the city would give us back 100,000. So it really would only be $1 million or $100,000 additional that the county would put in for a $4.5 million project. So, but the other option would be that they just covered the additional $1 million. And one of the reasons why I think, and now I'm kind of reading the tea leaves, but they've got a massive amount of dollars for the 2020 EDA funds that were apportioned during the whole COVID thing. And so when we had to reapply in 2021, I was asking when I'm re-updating the paperwork, do I go $2021 or do I go $2020? And they've been having me utilize the 2020 budget this entire time. So it says to me that they have an exorbitant amount of money from the 2020 funds that they can use on 2020 projects. And that's one of the things why I think that why they saw us a third time, because the IRC only sees you twice. And they saw us the third time, and then they basically said, get your ducks in a row and we'll move forward. That being said, it's very promising news. This last Thursday, our cultural 106 resources were done at the airport. That's our whole thing that we had to do for our environmental review to satisfy the federal EDA. That was done on Thursday. They're doing the paperwork this week, then they're going to be sending it up. And so I've been informed August 22nd is when we're going to get that portion solidified. And the EDA informed me, I believe it was yesterday, that once we get that portion done, they will give us the award letter. So all year it's been, hey, if you get this done, we'll give you we'll do some award conditions within the award. We're not going back to the IRC. And I'm like, well, when am I going to get the award letter? So I've been told, and they want to get us the award letter no later than the end of September. So sooner the better. So it is basically on our onus to get that cultural resources done. The biggest timeline on that is just a bureaucratic waiting on DAHP to get back to us saying that we're ready to go. This is the third time we've surveyed that property. So it's not, we just have to do it again because it's been over 10 years. But so from my understanding, there's no hiccups or anything. We're just waiting. So, but that's the federal EDA grant. So from my understanding, with the inflation, I've been told to relax, and they've been very clear about that. So I don't know if that allays any concerns. To a certain extent, it doesn't for me. So I'm taking it off.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, it's transitory.
But when you create your own money, it doesn't.
See, I'm also thinking about this. If we didn't have Richard here doing this, Dave doesn't have enough time. That money wouldn't even come into the county pretty much. You know what I mean? So this is,
there's his ROI right there.
I'm thinking back on that, on the money, and I'm thinking about that. Like, even if it goes up, you can save the county $500,000, or if not more, right there. So, but.
And one other piece of note to put on that, my predecessor, Denny, he was able to do, so the county did phase 1 of the airport on that infrastructure project. And Denny was able to get federal funding for the Life Level. That's a phenomenal building that's out there. If you've ever been out there, the type of everything they got, great mission out there. There's so much work that was involved in that we were in the midst of doing the economic development strategic plan, and we were able to get with MCED and partner with MCED, which was great. And that part-time job, MCED underneath Amanda Hoya, it originally went out and got a part-time person for just the grant management portion of that federal EDA grant. And then that position turned into a full-time position just for that grant to get it finished out. So, and that was with Jackie. And so, and she was fantastic to work with the entire time. And now that Suzanne is retired from the county with out of Public Works, she was one that typically deals with it for us. We can get the grants and just shove it to Public Works and never have to look at it again. But speaking with Jeff, that's no longer the case. And I'm going to be the one that's going to be trying to to do the whole grant management portion of that. So there's gonna be if there's a worry about the workload for the second position, just from my opinion, we can give them some overtime, in my opinion. I got that.
So Dave, is it clear as mud on your direction on that?
You just stop.
Well, I haven't chimed in. I guess I think I would support it for the same reasons I supported it before. It just makes sense to me. This is not a department that's, in my opinion, flagrant mismanagement of all of them. Consequential. And plus, I'm on an advisory board for the EDA. Yeah, we want to increase our staffing. It makes sense to me. It just does. And that's what that money. Why not? All those reasons that everybody decided. I get that. But, you know, what would we do if one of you left? You're taking a 2-person department, and you're adding another 50% to that. That could be huge down the road if something were to happen. Yes. But are you looking for a percentage increase or a dollar amount?
Flexible employee increase.
Because a percentage increase would take care of that fluctuation and revenue.
No, the percentage increase doesn't. That when I use a percentage, it varies. And like I say, last year was, the revenue was last year, I based my 20% on was 400,000 this year. This year's budget is based on 600,000. So we kept, at least when I proposed it, I think it was look at the ratio of putting on the ground versus other resources.
So with that question, if someone was going to make a motion to accept this, would it be percentage or an employee or dollar amount or?
Ideally, it would be to handle the employee.
What I would. I'm waiting to make a motion.
So what's the-
Anyone else has any comments?
So what's the timeframe? Starting when? September or starting in the first of the year?
That's to be discussed with the board. If it comes on this year, it'll have to come, I've already got the funds committed to this year. I'd have to go to fund balance if we brought it on this year.
Have we, the county fund the appropriate person for starting in fiscal year 2023?
Dollar amount.
I will second that with the amendment that comes from 09 fund.
Yeah.
We want that clearly noted.
Yeah. I'm good with that.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second for the funding of a second economic development specialist from $0.09. Discussion.
Did we put a dollar amount on that?
Not in the motion I heard.
All right, so when I took a look at it, we're on the order of, for this new position, it's on the order of 63,000 and salary, and assuming there's about a 40% benefits worth about 80,000.
That's a max. If you can't use natural resource money to fund part of your salary, that would drop that number down maybe.
That's what the position costs. Yeah, I just have to take a look at how I'm moved to where. And I've had some things in natural resources where they're neglected and their economic development related. Most of it's water.
So if for some reason, let's say this goes for the next year, which is great, and then something happens, we have something bad, and we have to get rid of that, do I have to be one that makes the recommendation that let somebody go? That's all I'm thinking. So-
Well, I would say that we have to come back every year for to have the diversion anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Give me a hat and a violin.
Ultimately,
Given-
actually, it's not like me anymore. I won't be there. Yeah, I don't care.
You're just making a recommendation.
To you guys, yes, so it's all on you guys.
Back then, would we still be doing it?
No,
I mean, that's how I.
We still got a lot of this.
Yes.
I think there's gonna be more and more need for SB, development in the next couple of years if we do go into recession. So I'm one of those guys that you invest money when you're down.
No, I'm always one of those, you gotta spend money to make money, so.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
I just want a point of clarification. It's hard to hear on the phone. What was the amount, the actual dollar amount?
Salary and benefits would be in the neighborhood of 88,000. I'm just making an assumption on benefits at 40%.
So you're gonna come in, step 1 through 3, you're coming in step 1?
That's, yeah, that's a step, that's right, that's a good point.
And I guess one point of discussion, if we're considering this at tonight's meeting and knowing that the hiring climate is also difficult right now, would it not maybe be more beneficial to be committing to a 2 years funding for this position so that you're attracting people that have some confidence that they're not going to be vulnerable on an annual basis?
That's not a good.
I don't disagree with that.
It's a good point.
They're always, everybody's.
That'd be helpful as well.
But if you secured the funding.
Anybody disagree with that?
So does that require that the motion be amended to a 2-year,
2-year commitment.
2-year commitment for the funds?
So what, in essence, what we're saying is we're committing just funding 2 years of wages and benefits from $0.09 for an economic development specialist.
That's a great motion.
That's what you moved, right?
That's what we're saying.
That's what I thought. You don't actually do that. Just so we have an idea.
I love that, David. Okay, is everybody clear on that? With that said, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
Bingo.
Okay,
Yeah.
update on approved projects for 0.09.
So for the community development project funds, we have a request from the Clifton County Cemetery District number 1. They are requesting an amount of $22,000. Their match right now in private funds is $530. The background on this, it's basically for tree trimming, but the background on this is that they don't have anybody, they don't have a grant writer, and they've been looking at some different options and stuff. Currently, it's a safety hazard, and for the community development project funds, we typically use it for basically public safety type of, most of the time, public safety activities. And so they're requesting they had to shut down this last year due to the snow and everything because all the tree limbs and everything became a safety hazard for the cemetery. So they're requesting for $22,000, and the amount we have within that fund right now is $22,500. Wow. And it should be noted, this year we haven't had any requests. And the one request that we were going to have, I've been speaking with Tim, and it doesn't look like he's putting in anything. The Cliff Top Fire District was not necessarily hurt this year. So last year they talked about doing kind of an asset inventory with the new fire chief, and I talked to him this year, and it's not critical that they get their
Question. Did you say the current fund balance is?
$22,500.
But we have had no
requests.
But did we not appropriate?
My understanding from talking to me last year.
Did we not
the board asked
appropriate?
for a cut in the budget, so it went from 50,000 to 22,500 was budgeted.
What a horrible board. Apparently I was not paying attention right now.
What do you think your 3% cut?
I guess.
I think it was just
how we
presented
balanced
that
it.
way, and you
Yeah.
didn't catch it or something.
Wow. Because I was gonna say,
Didn't you say they
Yeah,
have
some
500?
directors don't need haircuts.
530.
500? I thought they'd already raised 5,000.
I got 530 that they wrote on the application.
Okay.
So, and I've spoken to them a few different times. It's $530. So, they've got a couple other things that they're trying to line up. They're also they're trying to purchase some heavy equipment on their own. So maybe that's what that's what you're thinking about. I know that, and that's gonna help them as far as the equipment that they have is, from my last time I can recall from a couple weeks ago, decades old. That's the best way I can put it. And so they're very, it's on its last leg every single, so they're hoping to do this before so that they can go purchase some equipment.
Commissioner Christopher.
I do worry about draining the fund to $500. Fire department comes and they need wildland firefighter gear or something, and we've only got $500 left in the fund. That worries me.
Yeah, 50%.
Yeah.
I know personally that they need the trees trimmed because I drove a fire truck in there one day and we ripped off a branch and stuff, but $22K for tree trimming seems kind of expensive too. That's just,
They're not tree trimming. They're gonna remove, I think, 18 or 20 trees.
okay, they're gonna be fully removed.
It's a lot.
Have we always?
Reasonable timber.
Not with those
knots.
Has this board always granted these requests at full value, or has this board ever just said, no, you only get 12 grand?
I'd say over the last 7 years, we have done one. It was a playground equipment for the Lisle School District. It was for $30K, if I remember. I don't think that they had a grant match, but they had a lot of in service or in kind.
And we were budgeted for 50,000 a year.
Right, so a little different.
So, and before that, we were allocated it out proportionately, but we have way bigger budget, it was
350.
And that was way fun.
So I will say, I went up and met with
Yeah.
them at the beginning of the year, and we walked around and looked at all the trees, and they said, "Will you guys come up with some funds and we'll match it?" I mean, 50/50, that's a regular grant match. And they said, "Oh yeah, we should be able to come up." And last time I heard, I thought they'd already come up with $5,000. They're probably thinking, trying to get us to pay for everything they can, and then they can reallocate that to the back, which leads to your problem.
What is the budget for that cemetery district? They're not allocating any of their own funding towards it?
Their
Did they
budget
divulge that,
is
or-
$16,000 a year or something ridiculously small.
Sure, but I'm just curious, within the application or in conversations they had when they were applying, they didn't divulge if there was any amount that they were considering appropriating towards this. They must account for some sort of fund, rainy day fund for these types of issues.
Richard said they're gonna put $500 towards it, is what they.
I did have a
The
question.
500 stated, 500 in addition to the donations they were.
So their application though, from the reading that's accurate. But it did say has the work been done? Because he said that in the application.
Yeah.
It's gonna be done on the 6th and 7th and they were gonna pay the bill. And
So
they obviously have some
Yeah,
cash
so
flow.
there was, so the July 6th and 7th that I sent to you, I told them that the application was fine, if they were fine, if they wanted to add anything to it, but there was a big misunderstanding when I spoke with Judy. And so what had occurred was they thought that we would just reimburse them. So they had already planned this a couple months ago for the fellow to come on out July 6th and July 7th. And so we caught that, and I let her know, hey, you should probably cancel that, because we got to get approval. The county can't go back and reimburse us until we get the contracts in place and it's approved and everything else. And the KCP board still has to discuss the items. So they were under the impression that they they just put in the paperwork and they go do the work and they come back. And it's like, no, I had to speak with them on that there was an actual process involved. And so I told them, at least back to October. I know they want to do it July, but push back to October and then we'll figure out what we can do. So
they did get pushed back. They haven't had it done.
yeah, they haven't had it done. So they thought that they were going to get the work done. They can just get a reimbursement from the county. That's kind of what they were thinking. So.
But it's, again, the point I'm making is They must have thought they had $22,000 of their own money to get reimbursed.
Yeah, so they're gonna take, so from my understanding is they have two choices. They can do the equipment or they can do the tree trimming. And so they got the funds for one or the other, but the equipment that they're doing, I'm not a heavy equipment operator, but is not gonna be for tree trimming. So regardless, they're gonna need the tree trimming done, and the equipment that they're gonna use is gonna be for cemetery stuff, digging holes. So that's kind of where they're at. And so I asked them to withhold it so that we can discuss it here. And I asked them, I said, do you want to do the tree trimming, apply for the tree trimming, or do you want to apply for a grant with the heavy equipment? And he said, we want to apply for the tree trimming. So.
I guess, Mike, I have some hesitations with this, and one, that it would deplete pretty much this whole fund that we have. Two, that the match is just not that significant, comparable to the amount they're requesting. But even more than it's that, FEMA made a major disaster declaration, and Klickitat County is part of that for these winter storms. And so it feels tough to allocate these community project funds, and I know there's these funding opportunities that are specifically available right now to address this exact issue, mitigating the results of these winter storms. And I understand that they're limited on their ability to, it sounds like, apply grant funding, but it seems like maybe with all the resources we have and the different collaborations in the gorge, some technical assistance could come forward to help the cemetery district possibly pursue those types of funds. And then if that's not possible, maybe they come back to us for this, would be my inclination. And I guess the unfortunate thing, hearing Richard's answer just now, because I was under the mindset of, well, they're going to take on this project and then pursue reimbursement through some of these other avenues. But if they can't come back to us at a later date, get reimbursement if these other opportunities fall through, that's unfortunate, which I wasn't thinking about earlier. But I still just have, I don't know, it's a total fit for me right now, what's being proposed and what these funds are supposed to go towards. Just seems like they haven't exhausted all other avenues and we're their last resort. Seems like they're coming to us as maybe a first or easy work.
Yeah, it's not much of a match. So would we want to entertain less and do a required match?
Where's our FEMA money that's out there, that's available? Have you heard of any FEMA money at all, Richard? Or?
For what they're trying to do with tree trimming?
Yeah.
Not off the top of my head, not for.
If the tree fell down, maybe, but just tree trimming, probably not. Or new tractor. Yeah, the grant match thing, I agree with her. I just, doesn't seem like enough to me, especially when it's a cemetery, so it's a cemetery district. So in all reality, they have their own taxing authority that they can go to their voters and say, hey, we need a new tractor. Will you vote for this tax levy? And this just seems like the easy way out. Let's not bring a match. Let's come to the county can pay for it. Might have made some enemies.
Good thoughts.
Well, if we're going back to the old days when we were allocating percentages somewhat based on emergency need and the number of districts potentially requesting funds, this is just over the top percentage-wise.
Yeah, I don't think I can support, I can't deplete the whole fund. We don't know.
Yeah.
That's always been kind of our emergency fund. If there was a fire district or something, like you said, that needed something and it's July, we don't know. We've done emergency where we've replaced pumps, where they came in and we did where it was such an emergency where we did the pole. We just sent the pole out because we're like, is this going to be okay? Because we're just going to do it and we'll figure out what pot of money we're paying for it out of. Where we're not going to have that ability. Especially after we just remembered that we got our allocation at half. See, this is what I was worried about happening, you cheap.
Do you remember what?
Hey, I just wanted to send it from 50 next year.
You remember Summit and
not gonna
Centerville
help us this
Cemetery, how much that was?
Yeah, so the, one of the reasons why we came for this fund in particular is the Centerville Cemetery District is also applied. And so we also gave them funding through this fund. And for them, and for them, and I don't have the project.
Yeah, that was an irrigation.
Yeah, that was their irrigation system.
That was like our first community develop, what was like in the old school. It wasn't emergency equipment or something like that. That was kind of opened the door that we were back to, well, we would consider safety or, you know, things like that. So
So as I understand it, the 22,500 would fix the problem. It would take the trees down, it would limb up the trees they can limb down, that would fix the problem. I hate to see these people that have been waiting around for months to try to get this project done, that have already scheduled it for us to do nothing and let them. But we don't have anybody else asking for any money. I think the easiest thing to do would be to say, you know, here's your 100%, you're asking for 100%. How many trees? Because, you know, they're saying they're gonna cordon off areas of the cemetery because it's just too dangerous under those trees, those limbs. And they do need limbed up. The best that is, it should be taken care of. Is there a way that we can say, if you bring $5,000 to the table, we'll bring 15 or 10? So you can get 75% of the way there. You might not get all the trees down, but you'll get a long percentage of the way there. And then if you got to wait a little bit longer, you know, build up your reserves to come up with your 5,000 for the tractor, well, sorry, but there's a match usually.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I need a lower number and they need a bigger match.
Is it too late for them to go for this next election to ask for a levy increase? I mean,
Probably.
probably you got to go pretty early.
okay.
I think the date might have passed if you're trying to get something on the November ballot, but there's a February window that they would be open to.
The other problem you look at is, you know, trying to up your levy when you pay all the fees and everything for doing your levy. When you look at these guys, it's like literally, what is it, 3 cents or something?
And you're also, I bet you they only have like a 3-month window to cut those trees down too, because if you start driving around with a bucket truck in a cemetery once it rains and stuff like that, so that's another problem. Yes. I agree. I think we should just take a certain percentage of it.
So it's 5 and 10 good?
I'd entertain a motion.
They come to 5, we give them 10.
I'd second that. Is that your motion?
Well, it was 22, was it 20 they were asking for?
They're asking-
22, but we're rounding down.
Oh, they were asking.
But it'll still get them to trim a bunch of trees. They won't be removing as many as they should, but it'll give them some.
Get them a start.
And then if they want to go out and do more fundraising, they can do more fundraising for the different.
Or they can go on the levy in February.
So I heard a motion that we would accept $10,000 in grant for a $5,000 match. And there was a second. Is there any further discussion?
I was just curious, how do we fund this community development project fund?
The county just puts it in there. Comes from the landfill. Our generous, ever-giving landfill.
So it fluctuates somewhat annually?
No, it is,
Just knowing.
it's a direct allocation and we set that during the budget process every year. It used to be a lot, it was 350,000. Then 12 years ago, 11 years ago, we reduced it from 350 to 50,000, concentrated on emergency, because it used to be true community development. You could ask for basically anything. And it was the 300,000 has been diverted to the radio fund to build up the reserve for the last 2 towers, which are, the last one's under construction right now. And so
That was a 10-year.
10-year commitment, which is, so there's somebody wants to reopen the discussion about is it time to?
Well, since we're not putting that money in the radio fund anymore, what are we gonna do with it? That's gonna be
Rebuild
budget
radio.
discussion.
Rebuild the,
There might be
That's a-
some that goes into a rebuild the radio fund, but
Radio,
Is this
ER and
discussion
R.
off the topic currently?
Yeah, it is.
Well, you know,
sounds like a board of commissioners discussion.
Those community, monies were, built a lot of goodwill.
They did.
A lot of good.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this? With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to provide $10,000 to the cemetery district if they can come up with a $5,000 match, also known as a 2-to-1 ratio. So if they come up with less, then they get less. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Who seconded that, please?
I did.
Thank
so
you.
for clarification, we're 2-to-1 matching up to their $5,000.
Yes.
So if they only come up with $1,000, we're only giving $2,000.
Or 530.
Yeah, right, yeah.
To get $1,000, $60.
Okay, when I brought up updated projects for approved .09 funding, did Death Valley Hospital finish their project? The 2021 project? It was in 2021 we funded. I don't know how much we funded that for.
75,000, that was for the, feasibility that we had done in the stakeholder group that we brought together that came up. The grid project. And today we actually found out that we're moving to the next stage with FEMA for that project. So it's that 75,000 hopefully will turn into several $1 million project. We find out at the end of August.
Great update. And then the Port of Clickatack was able to build that flex space, correct? And did they end up leasing? I was looking at the minutes that, did they end up leasing it to them?
Last I heard.
Yeah, I think
So
it's,
yeah,
it's rented.
That was able to lease out with their tenant.
Is that Rolls Royce?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if they finalized it and moved in and everything.
Yeah, so they're all moved in. They got trucks with the logos on them.
How many employees did that hire?
Altogether, they're going to be expanding into 5. I think right now they just moved in, they got 3. So,
Oh, can we get a county silver shadow with that?
yeah.
Yeah.
So that Rolls Royce is a really big win for that, for where that is in Dallasport. Rolls Royce on anything, bringing them in is going to be a really big win.
So
So
pitch in for county vehicles now and.
It's the generator side. I actually just bought one
Only
in
for the
in
commission.
an auction,
right?
believe it or not, so.
Yes, I don't think it's the fun stuff. So.
Okay. and-
Generators are kind of fun.
And we got the update on 250,000 that that we have allocated that we're hoping to switch out with funds from waste of the landfill gas project. Here. Next up, buildable lands inventory discussion.
Yeah, so we did the buildable lands, Leslie? We're
Sure.
buildable lands inventory, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a meeting with the red group and brought up in that discussion, how do we get some more utility out of that work product? So,
Yeah, so the buildable land survey and all the work that was done with that, I think was $156,000 project. And so wanted to, use that as a resource and tool to look at what the original intent was. Where's the best place to build in the county, where with the land that's available, the infrastructure to support it. So there was an infrastructure assessment, some catalyst sites that were identified by the consultant as catalyst sites. The survey was used, has been used a little bit with a couple of builders too, because there's some really good data in there. It's a little bit outdated because the housing market has really fluctuated, but that the demand is still there. And we know that on both sides of the county is there. We formed a work group, but we only met a couple times and COVID hit. So I would like us to see that, get that back on our radar and do some work with it to really get some value out of it. So that's why I wanted to bring it back to because housing continues to be a major issue for all employers to find housing for employees.
What was the purpose of the subgroup that this group formed for the housing? What were they gonna try to find? I mean, was there any guidance there, or were they just gonna see what they can do with it?
I think a lot of the discussion revolved around the cattle sites. Was that inappropriate? In some of the discussion was, particularly looking at the housing, what's the role of public sector versus county, or public sector, are we picking in winners? That sort of thing. And I think that we've got the work product there. We're not the only ones struggling with this out there, and everybody's trying to get their head around it. How do we encourage more housing development to meet the demands out there?
So the work group was formed to say what is the county's role and where do we want to look and put resources into or not, and why is the county getting involved in housing? At the time, there was discussion around, we don't want to see farmland continue to be subdivided in 20-acre parcels and lose the agriculture of Clickstack County, because there's not places to develop and buy homes anywhere else. So I think the REDS project also has made some traction, and the city has hired a consultant to do a study of a TIF project, a tax incremental financing, and the buildable land survey is helpful. I think will be helpful for this is the same consultant that did this, because it identifies these areas of land within the city limits that could be developed. And so do you have an update on?
Not too much, but I know we had a couple of presentations. And I've forgotten the name of how it has to do with funding housing, but it's a serious problem. I think in most every community in this county, the housing is having a negative economic impact because there isn't housing for the type of people who want to come to work at the hospital or any of the other more professional type jobs. They don't find what they're looking for. Either they or the whole family leaves. Sometimes they commute, but most of the time they just withdraw. So I don't have more than that.
I know there was a WASAC, the new meeting today was on TIF. They sent it over to Larry. I was gonna be in it, but then I ended up driving to work, so I didn't get to do it.
So the other piece of the conversation was there's barriers that contractors, developers are encountering that maybe the county could have some influence on. So Dan Rhodes brought up the snow loads. Why was that made? It sounds like maybe that was a state change, but getting that feedback from contractors, Gene Callan has a project here, the old nursing home site, that he's put a lot of time and effort into trying to develop, and gave an update at the last REDS meeting. Dan Rhodes has his project, the Carvers here in town. These were all, folks that would like to do more, but are incurring some, not just the cost of construction inflation. So how can they be supported? And then, of course, the infrastructure. So the city with the wastewater and Golden Bell, and I'm sure White Salmon Benton side also has the same.
Where I would be curious if this group would find out if they would meet with those builders and developers, and if they can give me the snow load or different regulations that we have that are making it expensive on them to do their job. And some of them, like the snow load, that's out of our control, that's state. But there might be other things like Title 12 road that we're already working on, but other things where we might be able to lower development costs on a county level by, I guess I'd say if our regulations are above state regulations, that we might be able to back ours down. Not necessarily will we, but I'd like to hear what they think those are.
So I think we had this conversation in this group and decided we need to form a work group because we just need to spend some more time on it. And then we just, I think, got sidetracked with COVID and life, and we didn't really get to meet. I think we met once.
Well, have you guys done anything in White Salmon with that? You had a special focus there on city supports, rezoning or comp planning.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the buildable lands inventory definitely helped inform some of our decisions on infrastructure improvements, which I think is a key area that both county and cities can leverage their strengths in helping to spur development. And so absolutely in White Salmon, a lot of the known available land we have, we ended up prioritizing some projects that hadn't been as elevated in recent years, specifically knowing that we need those in place for development to happen in some of those areas. And I think I think it was Commissioner Christopher that just spoke, but sorry if I heard the voice wrong. But in terms of going back through our codes and where regulations might be cost prohibitive for developers, that's something we've undertaken too. But I also agree that recharging this effort and using that buildable lands inventory as the foundation to get another work group going would be beneficial for both the west and east side of the counties. I also just want to flag that those 0.09 funds can also be used to support workforce housing up to 120% AMI, which is more than a lot of the federal funding programs, some that we're currently accessing in the city to support housing, that caps the limit at 80 and 60%. So I think there is opportunity if we start getting strategic collectively to also leverage some other that we already have at our disposal and use them in a way that supports housing.
Than us do this year in legislature, you know. So do you want to get, maybe put something together where we get folks to meet some like quarterly and start working on this? Or do you think more frequent? Quarterly work?
Yeah, I can't remember who was.
That was me. I don't remember who was
I
on
know I was on it, but I can't. So just
Okay.
pulling that group back together and then maybe seeing,
In
having that discussion.
Yeah, in particular, get people representing government agencies on that and get some private sector.
You're all quiet over there.
Well, the reason I'm being quiet is that I was on that committee, and I think where part of things we kind of lost focus was that we lost focus on what we were trying to accomplish. When we initially authorized and did the buildable lands inventory, it was going to be information that would inform us as to, that's why we asked for catalyst sites where we would focus. It was going to be identifying the places where we could focus our limited, infrastructure development as far as things that we could leverage and that. But then when we got later, we got into we don't want to pick winners and losers. And then it's like, we didn't know what we're supposed to even do with this data. As far as and I think in White Salmon, you have picked winners and losers because there are winners and there's not losers, there's winners. There are places that if you happen to you own an undeveloped piece of land that is developable that happens to be either near a lift station or something, guess what? You're a winner. Or there's a new, but that was kind of the idea of it, was to solve the problem so that we would focus mostly as a public entity, it was going to be the infrastructure piece. Because that's usually the thing, that's the problem, is that it's a big ticket thing that a piece of dirt may be one thing, but if it's got no water and sewer, it's not really worth anything. And the developer can't or doesn't want to make that, a huge investment to be able to open up a new area. And that would be something that maybe we would look at, but we're not. But then if we do that, we've created this value for somebody and we picked a winner. And so we kind of lost, we didn't know what we were supposed to do with it. And so we just kind of, it sounded like that. We just sort of stopped. I'm sorry, you've used your breathing.
That's what I was gonna say.
That's what I did.
Sorry, we set the timer.
And I worry about that with the TIF too, because you look at it and if you can, do that TIF and you both understand it, if you can put that money aside and build the streets and the stormwater and the infrastructure, ideally the developer doesn't have to build it. So hopefully they can sell the houses for $30,000 less. But do they have to? Right. Or do they sell them for full value and they make more profit? So it's kind of like.
Yeah, but see, I would say this is where you get them to the table, and this is how we've been approaching it in White Salmon. If we're going to do investment, the public needs to see a return on that. And so where we have negotiated and been moving the needle slightly is to say, we made that investment, we'll give you X fees waived for some of your hookups, or we're going to invest in this infrastructure that lowers your costs. You have to commit to a percentage of that being affordable housing. And what that also does is open up funding, which actually is open right now and might be something of interest to the other cities and counties through Department of Commerce. It's CHIP, Connecting Houses Through Infrastructure. I forget what the P is. But anyway, if you have, can check everything off that list, and critical among that is a project identified, land that you own or you've acquired, you can get some of those infrastructure costs covered. And so now you're presenting that you didn't have to carry that burden, but you're still able to leverage it with the developers. And I think that's really seeming to be the tipping point in a lot of these other communities, not just statewide, but nationally. And it is actually where we've seen some traction and been able to get people to the table and engage more fully and commit to 20 to 30% allowance of affordable homes.
So Marla, how are you keeping them affordable? I mean, how are they committing to, the initial offering is affordable, but with the market the way it is, I mean, we all hear stories of people, not that they were necessarily affordable, but people bought houses for $500,000 2 years ago and are selling them today for $800,000. 500,000 was affordable.
Right. I know, I think you froze. I'll see if you guys come back. Oh, you're back.
Hey, I got you. I got you. Well, I got her on my laptop.
Oh.
So.
You're very.
I think,
now, but listen, I'm very.
Commissioner Sato, even the internet hated the fact that we're calling 500,000 affordable, because that's exactly when you froze.
Well, we are 100% on that.
So do they have some kind of structure in there where they can?
It's all by land trust. It's all by land trust, and then you only get 3%.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. All right. I'll put you on a table here on a chair in the
We
center.
don't need to see her.
Well, so she can hear you when you guys speak. So.
Hi, guys. Sorry, everything froze, but I guess I'm back. And it sounds like Commissioner Anderson might have been saying some of it, but for a lot of it, in order to really ensure the affordability, that's where those partnerships come into play. Either Cascade Columbia Housing, obviously in our region, but Catholic Charities up in Yakima, they've been able to really scale in an impressive way in a lot of similar sized communities in the eastern part of Washington. But that's the partner that actually ensures the commitment to that affordability long term. So they oversee that distribution and the maintaining of the resale values, setting that percentage limit so that whomever is buying the home is allowed to build some equity and move on when they sell, but not all of a sudden go full market. And that's kind of what we've been working on. And obviously it's a project that's still underway, but to this point, we're 20 months in, and I would say where we've been able to keep it moving is being able to leverage what we can, which is acquiring land, investing in infrastructure. It also happens to be, again, back to that buildable lands inventory, an identified place where it's not just that we're doing infrastructure that benefits that land, it actually benefits a significant amount of the developable land that was identified in one of the areas of town where we know we have to support growth. So I think it's the combination, but even just having this conversation, maybe, because I agree with you too, Commissioner Sapp, we were in that work group and then it kind of stalled out. Maybe the way that we approach the first meeting, if we're going to get a group back together, is that those representing the county or the cities or organizations come to the table giving an update on either a project or an idea they have about an identified land opportunity in their area. And if there's private developers or partners also attending that meeting, we can actually spur some conversation on specific projects or ideas and work through those and see if there's something actionable that comes out of it. Because it does seem like otherwise we kind of go in a circle of, well, this could be a good idea, but you know, what would be the barriers? And if we jump right in and maybe identify roadblocks, we feel like we're kind of collectively making headway.
Thank you. I was to the first point about the affordability. I was curious if it was a different than what I'm aware of. I've actually been working, I'm on the Columbia Cascade Housing.
Yeah.
And am on the land trust, you know, we've been developing that. I just wondered if you were using a different, but it's our model. So
Do we
it's good.
think this would, I guess I'd say work countywide since housing is so different on the east than it is the west?
It potentially can because it is.
Yeah.
It's a shared equity model where you own the house, the land stays in the, you know, trust. You do get it's a set maximum of, you know, it goes up every year. You can sell it, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, and I would imagine the same county regulations that are constraining developers on that side are the same kind of regulations that are constraining developers on this side, so.
Okay.
The other thing, didn't you add in there, Marla, that they got a density bonus by being a part of it to lower the cost? And so that's the other reason for joining in.
Yeah, which is also something to leverage. You know, if they're going to commit to a certain amount being affordable, then offer, you know, more density on the land. The other thing, and we haven't done this yet, but it's top of mind because I think we're considering it on a different area, is potentially pitching out to see if there's a public-private partnership opportunity. Leverage land that you already own and say, come forward, pitch to us a model that retail, multifamily, that's market rate, but also a certain amount affordable. Because the same way that it's appealing to take land out of the equation for affordable homeowners, I think it's appealing to a lot of developers that aren't considering affordable projects. If all of a sudden that land's an opportunity where they can still see some market rate value coming back, but give some good in to the community. So that was something that we had seen done in a few other communities, and we're kind of considering it with a different piece of land, maybe for multifamily housing. But I think there's definitely interesting ideas out there. It's kind of, you know, we don't have to rethink the wheel, but it's hard to keep tabs on all these different options and what seems to be successful or not.
So who's all on that board besides you and Leslie? Do you need to report that board?
Well, my suggestion would be it be formed with somebody other than me, since my shelf life is fast approaching. So I will advise. How's that? I could be board member emeritus or something. But
We might want to put Larry in that same category.
yeah.
The shelf life is really.
Are there anybody interested in joining our own small subset for housing? If so, raise your hand.
Come on. This is your chance.
If not, we'll let Columbia Cascade Housing do it. Okay, not seeing, oh,
I am interested in seeing it moving forward, and I, you know, I can fund some from the city, so Larry just kind of asked me on. So I have a really vested interest in seeing housing if you're city and house folks.
well, you are the chairman of the subcommittee and you can pull your, whoever you want, if you can get them to work for you.
So Marla, and for you, on that committee as well.
She was. Yes.
Yeah, maybe we can go back and pull those minutes and see who was and see if those folks are still interested, and if there's some openings, you know, reach out.
Okay. Sounds like a good plan for the chair of the committee.
I would be happy.
I'm not super excited about it, but if you need me, say the word.
So may I make that, can I have a question? or-
Absolutely.
So from my experience, outside the city, so mostly we're talking city properties, but outside the city, we're getting these cluster developments or high density developments on, I would call it, maybe not quite so prime agricultural grounds, but they're still agricultural grounds. But without naming names, I've noticed is that we're starting to run into a water availability issue. In that some of my neighbors have had to go and deepen their wells in the last couple of months because people upstream, so to speak, I'm not going to say they're literally upstream, people who are have tapped into that same water and they're withdrawing more than what the resource can adequately recover. And so people who were here 30 years ago or 35 years ago bought Shangri-La are now finding out they got to deepen their well another 150 to 200 feet in order to have the same ability to have water prior to all the people who recently moved in and are now drilling wells. And I think that's going to become more of a problem in the central part of the county. I don't know about the western part of the county. You get a little more rainfall, you have a little more snowfall, and you actually are in different kind of gravels. Here we're in the salt.
What, actually, we're seeing groundwater declines over large areas. It's not, I think it's the drought we've had for several years. I talked to JP, for example, and he's right there at the source for Spring Creek, and the flows are down through the spring.
Well, I agree with the upper level flows, but so just FYI, I mean, I'm 780 feet deep in solid salt. My water is awful. So if it's awful water, it's not fresh water. It's dinosaur water. And so people who are drilling into that same aquifer hasn't really affected me, but as the deeper you go, the worse the water becomes. And you have to have an additional treatment equipment, and you end up putting more water back through your wastewater. So it's, your own home wastewater system. It becomes a circle of no return. And I'm just bringing this up for conversation purposes, not to try to make a ruling or anything. I think that the cities being able to create zoning areas and create infrastructure areas where they can bring in multiple housing units, I think that's where it really needs to be. But I can say I did a income survey 8 years ago through Benjamin for the city of Benjamin, and maybe 7 years ago. Most people I've talked to, their income that were in what we call the low income areas was way more than what assets being people. Just says that low income housing was being consumed by not low income people. So that's the caveat where I think you have to be prepared that if you're going to ask for low income housing assistance type funding, that you actually do keep low income housing. It gets overrun by people who can afford to actually rent more. And so you own the house, well, I'll pay you more than that guy. So it means that they're bidding more. So in order so that they can live in White Salmon and Benjamin, that's where they want to live.
Right.
And that's just.
I think it's deeper than that. I think with the housing, I think there's county rules, cut right to the chase ADUs. Why can't you rent an ADU? It'd be a hell of a lot cheaper for me to throw an ADU on my property, which I can't already have one, and rent it out than it would be for Richard to buy a lot, buy a well, buy a septic, put a house on it. You could fix some of our housing problem just by allowing ADUs to be rented. That's a board decision, but it can come up during your little housing conference.
You can rent an ADU.
Yeah,
You can't do short-term rental.
Right, the kicker is, do you want rental people within 100 feet of your house in a 900 square foot ADU? Can you up that to 1100 so you can get your bedroom? Can you push it to 300 feet so you don't have to have your renters right outside your door? Those are all great discussions for the.
Yeah.
We put together a group, would you be interested in bringing some of your banking experience to the discussion, or? I know you're tired.
It's like me, he's got so many hats already.
Yeah.
So why don't I reach out to all the jurisdictions, get some money from the county, Dan, and then it's the 3 cities.
Okay, I think we have action items on this. Buildable lands inventory, now housing discussion.
I
Yeah,
think, in addition to the housing discussion, I know we're having studies done on it. One of the city wells, because it's not coming back where it should. And I'm trying to find out what's going on, but I have a feeling that will become countywide by the other declines in the ocean. And that affects housing as well as everything else.
And this inventory is also addressed, working lands, commercial properties and industrial properties. So, there's some funding happening available to try to get stuff ready for development, shovel ready. So talk to Wayne for it, see if they want to make it a broader conversation in housing, but how do we get traction on that? Okay.
Okay. All right, we will move on. Thank you, everyone, for the lively discussion. Working Washington Small Business Grants, round 5. Does anybody remember round 4?
That was the year.
I remember round 3. When did round 4 come?
Well, it was last year. Yeah. So we discussed that a little earlier when Gloria was here.
Yep.
That was the one. So yeah, I think we got it covered. I have nothing to add there other than opening up 17th of next month.
Okay, and we will be sending an email to our
Yep.
list. All right. Roundtable discussion. What do you guys have for good of the order?
Just a note, we talked about the Goldendale Energy Storage Project earlier. Its environmental impact statement draft has been published by Ecology. Comments are due August 9th. And Ecology, it needs a 401 water quality certification from Ecology, looking at the environmental components of it. There is no impact that can't be mitigated to a level below that as being significant, according to the draft. I'm sure there are going to be parties that comment that will argue otherwise. It's got some challenges in the cultural resource section, so I'm generating comments. Would this board like to send a letter of support for the project with some?
I would.
Get some comments together.
Yes.
From the EVA one.
I'm a yes.
Is there anybody who's not a yes? Sounds like you have direction.
All right. I get something together.
Okay, other roundtables? Start this in. Anything?
I mentioned that FEMA, so there were 2 projects, and I wasn't quite sure which one, and I think they were both hospital with the and then the other project was the 35,000 permit, which we have continued to meet, and we get this it's been fantastic. But we're definitely seeing movement on a lot of
Mayor Mike?
Well, I think everybody knows Larry's leaving end of this week. Pat Munyon, who is the county, was the city administrator for White Salmon. We hired him, and he'll be replacing Larry. We also have a new city treasurer. Connie Myers is retiring, same time Larry does. And Sandy Wells will be the new city treasurer. Both of them very experienced. And Pat Munyon has just been like a glove hitting over her hand. It really made a very good start for the transition there. It's working very well. And on some of the more complicated things that may come up on the TIF and things like that, Larry will still be probably coming in to help if we call them in for it. There's a lot of residual things that you can stay ahead of. And we're getting awfully good cooperation from the department and the college. I don't think I'd ever heard of that before in my life. And they have really pitched in. And I think it's a good time. I think it's a good indication for the county that we have a good standing city of Kennet. With them, we're trying to do the best we can, and they seem to be recognizing that and working with us. We're really happy with that. That's me.
All right. Dale, how's retirement?
tough. It took me about 6 hours to adjust to it.
So would you like to be on more committees?
No, I've been paring down and, I kept this people. I've been on for long. But, something I really believe in, the county has done a great job on. We go back to where we did, there's some, they can hire somebody to go around and do all these community assessments. That was a wonderful introduction. And then the county funded the community grant program. That was a great program. And I just cannot tell you how many lives that went out. And I would love to see the county do that again after this change. Whatever. We're going to have a tax windfall from whatever source, that project, whatever. It's a great return on. I always like that. And it was fun working the numbers. It was just a fun meeting. Communities really, really appreciate it. So we could keep that on the someday.
I'm gonna write you down as an eyewitness for my budget meeting.
Well, it was very, very, very efficient to tie in with the county. We used everybody, nobody could deny it.
We had tied county commissioners much closer to the communities throughout the county. It was a really good thing, both sides.
Yeah, you saw a lot of coordination and consideration there between requesting parties. It was pretty impressive.
Commissioner Sutter?
No, I've said enough time.
I was gonna run the beeper right away.
Your 3 minutes are expired.
Commissioner Christopher?
I guess I'd just say I apologize for being cheap and turning the air conditioner off at 5 o'clock ago.
And not knowing how the program
Yeah.
is.
And the lights, and the internet.
And then fancy wall monitors. Yeah, no, other than that, I totally agree with you on the community building block grant numbers. I think that makes a big difference to the communities. So as Dallasport starts developing a park and the grant match from Goldendale, White Salmon, Trout Lake Playgrounds. I understand not having it the last 10 years. 911 radio towers were more important. But if we don't have any more, either way, that's said enough. Next.
I would say that, I was really upset when those $300,000 went away. I've since learned that, the radio project touches every one of those communities. It is an investment in every one of those communities. The community may not see it, but every time you call 911 and every time somebody gets dispatched, that is that money being invested back in the community.
Definitely valuable.
Anything else?
I'll just say we are happy to help support the county with the REDS project. Also thinking the Forge Technology Alliance is something that we help lead, and we had a great party at ICE last week to help start bringing the tech companies together and talk about growth. So Ryan and Richard and Dave were there. And we are also pushing the broadband speed tests. We have the opportunity to get into some of the back end and get more of that speed test data to be able to work with communities for applying for broadband grants. So whatever we can do to get people to take speed tests is great.
I'll give you mine. 2.6 up and 0.8 down.
Apparently you don't have.
No, it's the other way around. So 2.6 down and 0.8. And that's like
Keeping that.
That sounds like.
Other than that, I want to say I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Nothing that.
Only thing I think of right now is if this project goes through in the Dallas, the pump storage and stuff, where's all these people gonna stay? So the county, we can do emergency, you know, you can build RV parks and stuff, but I think it's important that money, because it's gonna be a lot of good paying job, stays in Golden Dome. Golden Dome needs all that, so I don't know what, you know, is available power wise and things like that, and utilities, you know, but that's my first thing is like, how to be prepared if the light switch gets turned on, so, but that's it.
That's Doug's problem.
So they had a comment. You know, the art colony used to house a lot of people. Back in the day, art colony.
Art colony.
Yeah, down by the air plant. Yeah, it was, it used to have a lot of people. And then John Toll had a RV park. So, I mean, there was facilities down there that used to house people. I mean, not every builder of that aluminum plant came to Goldendale or the Dallas. I mean, they actually stayed right there on the side. So,
I don't think the current county laws.
I know,
I'm just thinking if the county could just, hey, if this goes through, then within 30 days, it's like, okay, apply for this really quick permit to get an RV park in or something.
Temporary.
We should think about it because it's even, you know, pump storage sure 2028, but there could be projects going on down there in 2024. So
Right.
Yeah,
we better be ahead of a little forethought would be good. So good call.
Okay. Anything? Okay, I like that. Richard, any last statement?
Yeah, just real quick, just to go off the, just a few things that are out there. We have been getting a little bit more, interest in business recruitment opportunities. Whether they're just people calling up, or whether or not they're a little bit more serious, some of them sizable, some of them smaller. But that's a lot more than what I've seen last few years. And so there's that portion. The other thing I'd like to say is, being able to work with Pat. I've already spoken with Pat, again, probably 12 times on trying to develop the Goldendale Industrial Park. And I've got a very good work relationship with March. And so there's some opportunity down there down for Industrial Park. And so we're going to be meeting up to see kind of exactly where they want to basically be in 10 years. And how is that going to work with the infrastructure and that goes businesses that would want to occupy that kind of space. So that's pretty promising that we get together with all that. That's it, thanks.
Okay, I'll just mention, speaking about broadband, we were looking for a state broadband infrastructure acceleration grant that I brought up in front of the commissioners that we were going to help support one of the local companies expand fiber to the home throughout the western part of the county. That was supposed to be coming out mid-June for a NOFO. They have now pushed that until the fall with an award announcement expected in the first quarter of 2022. So that just got pushed back. I got that email today. And then the other update I'd have is that we got $75 million for the Hood River Bridge from Senator Curtis King from Washington's first big punch on the bridge to jumpstart things. That then we can leverage, and we applied for $195 million grant through the Fed's infrastructure program, because all of this infrastructure dollars are starting to flow in, and we'll find out about that in the fall, and we're going to apply for another $195 million grant through the next federal highways, hoping that we get some of each, and they can piece it together however we can. But we just went back to DC to try to educate, and we met with the White House, we met DOT, we met Department of Agriculture, as well as our delegations from both states, and everybody signed on board to support our applications. So I know when we talk about infrastructure, a $500 million bridge is probably one of the biggest things that we built here, that was the investor into the gorge.
You say we, do you guys hire a grant writer or is that done in-house?
No, WSP did, likely doing both grants.
Okay.
No, you hire that stuff out.
That's what I was just thinking, if it went through EDC in some way or something, I was going, okay, there's another value I had to.
Yeah.
So,
Richard does that on their kids.
Yeah, no.
No, that's all, highly paid people, that specialists in grant writing and studying bridges.
Is Marla still on? I can't tell.
So the Wi-Fi shuts off at 8.
Yeah.
Specifically 8.
Dude, we really did.
Really?
Oh, there she is. She's
Oh,
still
Marla's
still there.
Hi, guys. The AC's on at our city hall, but my lights are coming off. That was money. No, I think Commissioner Anderson covered the main update for the west side, which is just our collective progress on the bridge. So as he said, we all have our eyes focused on this fall and seeing what may be awarded for that project. As you know, housing is a continued focus. I was happy to hear childcare in Jessica's presentation. We're certainly elevating our focus on that issue as well. Definitely a stress for you guys as well. Central and East, we've been feeling it on the side too. So nothing else to add for the good of the whole.
If you run into folks that are seriously interested in starting a childcare thing, let us know so we can link her up with Lorena. She's got a background.
Well, yes, please connect us, because what we want to do over here is do an outdoor preschool. Washington State is the only state in the country that will license and allow those. So we're looking for a partner to leverage our city park. So connect in. I will connect in with you.
Okay, yeah. But she's not looking to run one. She can advise people that, on the business side of it, is getting someone to run it.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Okay, I don't believe we have anyone from the public here. I had one person that was trying to log on that said they couldn't. So hearing no public comment, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Well, you better get them real quick. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
There's been a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Let's run upstairs and press the stop recording button. There, Richard. Thank you, Marla.
Thank you, Marla. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Everybody take a piece of pizza home with you.
You ever are you on the videos? Like $130 a month. I don't know.
I want to sign for him.
I already signed this thing. We already signed one somewhere else.
Yeah, we have two. Even better, you change the dollar.
Yeah, I sent mine to him.
So honestly, you don't remember that. And honestly, it's a game changer. We're running it's very wrong.
I'm on the shelf.
I think